I quietly left after discovering my wife's affair after 3.5 years of marriage. A year later, my ghosted ex-wife tracked me down. After hearing of my wife's adultery, I moved to the hills. I'm not sure why I'm writing this, but perhaps it will be helpful to someone now that the incident is over and I've moved on. After 3.5 years of marriage, I learned of my wife's affair in February 2018. I worked a contract job that occasionally required a lot of travel but also permitted me to work from home when I returned. As a director of a technical sales company, my wife held a very lucrative position. Although things had become a little strained due to her working longer and longer hours and me traveling for work, we still had what I would call a fairly excellent marriage. Background: 5 years ago, at a cookout hosted by a mutual acquaintance, I met my wife, who is now my ex. We immediately clicked after we started talking. To be honest, I felt that being with a woman who was so attractive and articulate was a huge advantage. My rough around the edges demeanor somehow appealed to her. After a few weeks of dating, we found ourselves smitten with one another. When we would meet at each other's apartments, the clothes simply flew off. After 18 months of dating, we eventually got married and moved into a large apartment while saving for a down payment on a home. Things began to change after the first 3 years of marriage. Even though I still had feelings for her, I noticed that she would argue over little matters. When I mentioned all the late hours and the increasingly regular work outings, she would grow irate. Since she had been moving up the corporate ladder, she would claim that it was a necessary component of paying the dues. At least that was her justification. She informed me that since I was also away for weeks at a time, I had no right to challenge her. In reality, I had only been taking vacations for 3 or 4 days every 5 weeks or so I assured her that I could definitely manage cutting back on my travel time. There was never a conclusion to these highly circular arguments. Looking back, I realized that I was unaware that my wife was having an affair. Aside from our declining sexual life and her persistently late work hours, I would never have suspected anything. I simply assumed that she was exhausted from her job. But being rejected so often when I tried to start a sexual relationship had taken a toll on my ego. Although she had a work mobile phone and might have been using it, I didn't witness the covert texting that I had read about in other articles. She used our spare bedroom as a home office and spent a lot of time there. Around September 2017, Kathy began returning home from work and spending the evening at a work engagement instead. This increased from 1 night per week to over 3 nights each week. Although I'm not naturally envious, she would undoubtedly be observed by others, and I'm aware that she would need to repel some of the males at her workplace. Despite working with more male CEOs than female ones, she gave off the impression that she was primarily engaged in her job. The first time I suspected she was cheating was a month prior to D-Day. Before returning home, she had made a brief stop at the supermarket. I was asked to assist her with the grocery shopping. Something pink was glinting from just beneath the front passenger seat of her automobile as I was retrieving a few items from the rear seat. It was a bra that belonged to my wife. She preferred ones from a certain clothing store, so I knew it was hers. Looking back, I can see the bra was a warning sign. She always removes her bra first, from under her clothes, when she's feeling very lustful. I'm not sure why, but when I watched this, I felt sick to my stomach right away. I couldn't understand why her bra was beneath the seat. I didn't say anything more. My heart must have been pounding so hard that I nearly passed out, because when I brought the bags back to the kitchen, Kathy asked me how I was feeling and said that I appeared to have seen a ghost. I simply ignored her remark. It took everything I had to conceal my emotions, but I did my best not to appear upset or deceived. I made the decision to try to find out whether or not she was seeing someone that night and the following day. I began to consider all the hints I could have overlooked. Other than the bra, I had no evidence. She works in an office building downtown, and we live in a reasonably big city. I made the decision to temporarily put the affair idea out of my mind and consider giving her more of my attention. I prepared a delicious meal and arranged the dining table with elegant plates, silverware, and candles one Friday after work. I purchased an arrangement of flowers and a lovely bottle of wine. I pointed out the dinner and everything I had made when she arrived as usual, breezing in after work. She apologized and said she was sorry, but she had to go to a neighborhood hangout to meet up with her coworkers. She mentioned that she needed to take a shower first but that she could have a small snack with me before she left. I guess I went utterly silent because my insides flipped on me. I won't explain the type of anger I was experiencing at the time, but I had had enough. I took my work cell phone and threw it in her back seat while she was taking a shower. I had been considering this as a means of using my own phone to find her. I walked into the kitchen after that and threw the food and flowers in the garbage. After taking a shower, she got ready and looked stunning as always. "All right, let's eat," she said. "Never mind, go out with your friends," I urged her. She asked me if I was angry after giving me a weird look. "I'm sad that you never want to do anything with me," I said. She got upset and sarcastically remarked on my short fuse while telling me to stop acting like a kid. I muttered, "Foolish me," as I stood there allowing everything to settle in. For once, I felt we should spend the evening together. She simply gave me a sly smile and stormed off. I pulled out my second phone and began following my work phone when she departed. About 20 minutes away, at the bar she often visits with her coworkers, I caught her stopping. I made the decision to go find her automobile. Indeed, it was in the parking lot of the bar. I waited to see if I could see her in my car across the street. I felt completely different, like a stalker, but I told myself that I had to calm my fear of her whereabouts. I observed her leaving the bar with a man about an hour after I got there. He had the appearance of an executive from her company. He took hold of her, drew her near, and planted a kiss on her lips. My body was totally numb, and my stomach started to clench up. They went to a different vehicle and climbed in together. When their automobile pulled out, I tried to keep up with them. You guessed it, they drove to a hotel 10 minutes away. As I stopped on the street beside the hotel, I saw them exit, holding hands, and enter. I'd seen enough. I felt foolish. I began pounding the steering wheel with my fist. That was it? Something went totally blank inside of me. I'm not sure if I had an out-of-body experience or blacked out, but as I got better, I felt like I wanted a drink. At this point, my life started on a path I never would have imagined. I simply began to drive out of town, replaying all that I had just seen. I was crying out of anger, as much as I hate to admit it. I located a pleasant little tavern on the outskirts of town, some 30 miles away, and stopped in. I ordered a drink while seated at the bar. The bartender, a lady, said that I looked like someone had taken the wind out of my sails, so I guess I looked like death warmed over. I answered, half smiling. "You could say that." A man sat down beside me and struck up a discussion. Even though I didn't feel like talking, there was something about this guy that put me at ease. We struck up a conversation, and eventually my wife's infidelity came up. I told her that all I wanted to do was get away from her and forget about her. "You're not alone, buddy," he replied, giving me a back pat after giving me a quick glance. I experienced that a few years ago. I think there's a reason why these things occur. Your life can now take a positive or negative turn, I assure you. At this point, everything is totally up to you. His remarks, for some reason, jolted me out of my gloom. Even though I was aware of my pain, I've always been able to see things rationally, and he was absolutely correct. We identified ourselves. Ray was his name. I really liked his salt-of-the-earth vibe, even though he was more of a country guy. "When are you going to move out?" he inquired. I suppose I never thought to look that far ahead. I had a fight-or-flight response going on, and I knew I didn't want to be around this woman any longer. "I have an idea and I feel very sympathetic to your situation," Ray added. "When the time comes, I have a mobile trailer on my land in case you feel the need to go. It might require some work and isn't very good. Why don't you visit and see if you could imagine yourself briefly residing in anything like that? I'll give you a terrific bargain on it, at least. You could even park it on a lovely piece of property I own. I would appreciate it if you could watch it for me. It could be beneficial to escape your predicament, just a thought." I took a moment to comprehend his concept. "Hell, honey, if I could have escaped my crazy ex-husband years ago, I would have jumped at the chance to go live in his trailer or anything just to get my head on straight," added the bartender, who had been listening in on the chat. Perhaps this was just what I needed, but I felt as though I had wandered into the twilight zone. "Yes, I'll think about it and maybe check it out," I said to Ray. After a while, we split up and agreed to get together at his house in a few days. I began to feel as though I had some perspective and an opportunity to escape what I thought was a terrible heartache combined with a nightmare. I knew one thing for sure. I would never, ever want to spend time with my wife again. I find cheating to be so disgusting, and it has always been the one thing I thought I would never put up with. I sat on the couch when I arrived home that evening after Kathy. Kathy asked me where I had been when she came out. "Where have you been?" I questioned, turning to face her. "You know I went to grab drinks," she said. I directly inquired, "Are you having an affair?" She appeared surprised, but she soon collected herself and responded, "No, why would you ask me that?" I informed her that I had heard she might be seeing someone at work. "Who told you that?" she said. "Someone I know," I said, but I kept the name a secret. After saying, "You're being ridiculous," she accused me of being intoxicated and insane and inquired about my whereabouts. "We're going to a bar to enjoy some drinks with our friends," I remarked. Despite her obvious desire to ask more questions, she returned to our bedroom and went to bed. Now that I had proof that she had been deceiving me for months, I made the decision to sleep on the sofa. I couldn't sleep at all because I kept seeing her in bed with this guy. I felt sorry for myself, disgusted, and hurt. But then I thought about Ray's trailer. The thought of it cheered me up, and it was almost like a revelation. Something must be wrong with me since the fight or flight response automatically activated amid the pain I was experiencing, and I preferred the flight response. We didn't talk much the following morning and carried on with the weekend as if nothing had occurred. I scheduled a meeting with Ray a few days later. I noticed that Ray had a lovely ranch when I got there, and the trailer was actually quite nice, about 26 feet long and fully furnished. It brought back memories of a fun spring break trip I took with pals while I was in college. Ray accepted the money I offered him for the trailer. To be honest, I almost took it from him. I drove over to see his ranch property after he gave me directions. There were hiking and biking paths close by, and the area was lovely, with lots of trees and scrub vegetation. Ray had a little cabin on a hilltop overlooking the property, with electricity and water accessible for the trailer, and it was close to the foothills of some mountains. Ray promised to set up the trailer for me and pull it to the location. I tried to get Kathy to come clean over the course of the following few weeks, but all I got was gaslighting. I even bluntly warned her that there would be no turning back if I discovered she was cheating. As a result, she became even more engrossed in her affair fog, and began to lash out at me with denials. I nearly laughed at how awful the denial was. I scolded myself for not capturing pictures of the two of them, and I had no tangible evidence that she had cheated. I decided that I wanted to leave this marriage after going through this emotional anguish. Instead of communicating my feelings to Kathy, I simply began planning. While she was at work, I started quietly removing my possessions from the apartment and transferring them to the trailer. At least I felt like I was doing something about it. I saw a difference in Kathy during this period. Although she had been behaving more politely toward me, I believed it was too little, too late. I felt I needed a break too, so she kept going on company outings, after work. One night, I got ready too, just as she was leaving. After glancing at me, she inquired about my destination. All I said was, meeting up with some friends. You wouldn't enjoy all the shop talk, and you don't know them? I interrupted her as she began to ask more questions. She used to say precisely this to me whenever I asked if I might accompany her on office excursions. All right, have a good time, she added, with a somewhat offended expression. I definitely will, I replied. I began making new acquaintances while working on the trailer and hanging out with Ray at the bar. I felt better after spending time with Ray's wonderful family and friends. I also made the decision to cut back on my drinking because I didn't want to form any unhealthy habits. I knew better than to drown myself in sympathy, even though it would have been so simple. At this point, Kathy informed me that the next week she would be traveling for work. She stated the executive team and a few department heads were going when I inquired who was going. I hope you have a great time with your boyfriend, I added, glancing at her. I immediately regretted saying that because it sparked a furious argument. Although, as Ray had informed me, it didn't really matter, I now regret not knowing more about her affair partner, AP. It doesn't matter who the other guy is, Ray replied. The fact that she chose to leave you is all that matters. She destroyed the marriage, whether she admits it or not, brother, facts are facts. Ray ought to write a book for the betrayed. Damn it. I had the ideal opportunity to move out entirely during Kathy's work vacation. When she was gone, I collected everything valuable that was mine, including clothes, laptops, and equipment. I didn't take any shared goods or furniture. I left a note before I left. It was a lengthy explanation at first, but I chose to make it brief. I wrote, I hope it was worth it on a piece of paper. On top of the note on the kitchen table, I set my wedding ring. I felt like a great weight had been lifted as I left. I was liberated. The hurt would take time to heal, and there would be baggage to cope with, but I had started. I needed time to myself and to swiftly and quietly get rid of her. The fact that I hadn't challenged her or coerced a confession didn't make me proud. I hadn't screamed or shouted. She didn't deserve it, in my opinion. She disregarded everything we owned, including our plans for the future, our aspirations for a home and a family, and now it was all gone. There was no turning back. I owed her absolutely nothing. She could handle the consequences. I hadn't planned anything or called a lawyer. I just wanted a new beginning and some clarity. The air from the mountains was just what I needed when I got inside my trailer. I resumed running the next week, and it was wonderful to be alive. Kathy texted things like, "We just landed. We're having a team dinner," and so on while she was away. "Where are you?" was the question in a few mails. "Why haven't you gotten back to me?" I didn't answer. My phone exploded with calls and texts when she got home. She kept trying to get in touch with me, but I ignored her. Her mother also tried to phone me after the first day, but I didn't pick up. She didn't try to engage my father because we aren't close and he is the only member of my family that I still have. Her messages grew more urgent after she was ignored for a week. "What is this?" was one of the texts she sent. "We must speak. I'm not sure what you believe you know, but nothing is happening. There isn't an affair going on." She finally texted me after a week of not answering, saying, "I'm sorry things got out of hand. It didn't matter that I was involved with someone at work. You were absent a lot while I was preoccupied with my work. I simply made an error. I intended to terminate it." An error? I had been waiting for this confession all along, yet somehow it only made me detest her more. Why was she unable to be truthful? I didn't have any dreams about a future with this woman. Errors don't persist for 6, 8, or a year. Her pleas for me to return and work on the marriage eventually grew pitiful. I refused to respond to her even after she stopped bothering me for a few weeks. I didn't want her to learn where I lived or to snoop around in my life. I didn't want my haven to be destroyed by this woman. She then began sending nasty texts like, "You're a coward one day. You refuse to speak to me. You have no regard for us. Come home, please, so we can discuss. You're where? I am able to visit you. Paul, please let's chat and make things right. Damn it." Although I don't recall all of the texts, they all appeared to be excuses with minimal genuine regret. In one ear, I let them go, and in the other out. After a while, I switched my mobile number. Update: June 2018. I received an email from Kathy informing me that she had hired a lawyer and was going to file for divorce. I just said, "Okay, that sounds good." This led to a barrage of emails requesting that I visit her and other things. She wrote that she would stop bothering me if I consented to an uncontested divorce after realizing this wouldn't work. After I consented, I was genuinely free a few months later. After I moved out of our apartment, I never had to see her again. She seemed to care more about that than I did, even though neither of us had any closure. I would occasionally think of her for a few months, and yes, the grief would suddenly come to me, like when I heard a song we used to enjoy. After a while though, I simply stopped thinking about her. Update 2. Now that I'm officially divorced, things are going great. In actuality, I got to know a wonderful girl. Just down the hill from my house, I was running on the trail. We clicked when I helped her replace a flat tire. Despite being a few years younger than me, she is fantastic and quite adorable. She refers to me as her mountain man, and adores my way of life. Although I'm not in a rush to commit, I also don't intend to give up on women entirely. I have no intention of moving out of the trailer anytime soon. I enjoy being outside and have simplified my life. It made everything easier for me, including the grief and my ex-wife. I am aware that everyone responds to these situations in a unique way. I was fortunate to be in my 3rd year of marriage and not yet a parent. I believe I acted in my own best interests. You don't have to spend your entire life with someone who cheats. If you experience something similar, try not to think about it too much. Continue living your life. As you improve yourself, it will get better. I hope everyone has the finest possible life. I've revised this roughly 5 times to make it readable, and I just wanted to give you an update on my ex-wife's condition. I was worried that my ex-wife was attempting to find me, as I indicated in my earlier post. I left our previous residence, which was around 2 hours away. I ran into her last weekend at a coffee shop I often visit in the town close to my home. It didn't seem like a coincidence to me. Fortunately, I managed to get away before she noticed me. Third update: I went into town this past weekend to get groceries and made a stop at my normal coffee establishment. I was utilizing their free internet to work on some paperwork for work. I finished and walked out of the coffee shop. I was on my way to my pickup when I heard someone shout, "Paul!" When I turned to look across the street, I saw Kathy. I was being waved at by my ex-wife. Finally, Armageddon had arrived. She hurried across the street toward me, and I stood there in disbelief. As though anticipating an embrace, she walked over and extended her hand. I stopped her in her tracks by instinctively holding out my arms with my palms up. She appeared to be in severe pain. Then she added, "I've been searching for you, Paul. I've wanted to see you since I heard you moved here. Can we have a conversation?" Guys, I felt like an animal confined in a cage. Yes, I did. "All right, let's find a table or something and we can talk for a minute." I finally gave in. When she asked if we could come to my house, I firmly refused. At the end of the street, she trailed me down to a bench outside a small store. She began by remarking on how much I had changed and how much she liked my new appearance, beard, and level of fitness. She raved about how much my body had changed. Wearing a tank top, small white shorts, and her hair in a ponytail, just like I used to enjoy, she was really putting on the charm. I had my radar set high. She was clearly attempting to activate the sex appeal. I needed to control myself so I could see where this was headed. She began by saying she was sorry about the affair. She claimed that after I left, karma had severely impacted her. When her employer learned of the affair, the situation became so tense that she eventually resigned. Her affair partner AP, who at the time was engaged, received criticism and was transferred to a different department within the organization. She replied by telling his fiancé the truth after he blamed her for everything, which caused them to split up. This is when she bowed her head and began to weep. I didn't say anything, I just sat there and looked around. She stood up straight and looked at me for a while. "What do you want from me?" I asked. She assured me that she had no intention of having an affair. She stated that the company's politics and positioning drew her in, and that her AP used his charm and influence to corrupt her. She acknowledged that she felt she was taking advantage of him as much as he was taking advantage of her. After I accused her of cheating, she stated that she intended to come clean. She drank after work to ease the guilt she felt at the moment because she loathed herself. She claimed that she felt so stupid, so alone, and as like her heart had burst with loss immediately after I departed. She ended her relationship with her AP right away. She believed she had to find me to see if there was any chance of reconciliation because I refused to speak with her or get in touch with her. She desired a fresh start. She hoped we could start afresh even though she knew we were divorced. I simply gazed at her. I then gave it to her. "You have no right to come out here and undo all the harm you have done. Do you think I'll overlook everything you did to destroy our union? As I previously stated, we were done if you cheated. Forgiveness does not exist. This relationship will not be restarted. You murdered it. As soon as you left me, you ruined everything we had. How foolish do you believe me to be? One evening, I watched you enter a hotel with him. Were you aware of that?" I became aware that people were beginning to notice that my voice had been getting louder. She grabbed my arm and started crying. After letting her sob on my shoulder for a while, I pushed her away. "I deserve all this," she replied, glancing up at me. "I am certain that I do. If nothing else, would you allow me to take you out to dinner? I'd rather not go. I would like to speak further. I want to make sure that we are transparent about everything. You need to spend more time with me than you have in the past. Paul, please. I love you so much, even though I know you might not want to hear it. Before you left me, I had no idea how much I loved you. You broke me as much as I broke you. I'm unable to forgive myself, and I don't want to do so till the day I pass away." She began to sob uncontrollably and hyperventilate. I lifted her up and gave her a hug. It seemed like my only option for soothing her. I knew then that I had shattered her heart as severely as she had shattered mine. Walking, we found a peaceful spot to carry on our conversation. I said, "How did you find me?" when she had calmed down. "Have you engaged a private investigator?" After giving it some thought, she responded no with a small giggle. She clarified that she asked how things were going when she ran into Stacy a few weeks prior. Stacy didn't mention that she had noticed me. Kathy forced her to reveal all the information. I had warned Stacy not to tell her, so she was reluctant, but Kathy persisted. Stacy finally gave in, but all she knew was that I lived somewhere close by and was in town. On her days off, she began to come here to check on me. I kind of laughed when she said that, thinking, damn, Stacy can't keep her trap shut. She blushed. We ultimately decided to have dinner at a charming little spot with a patio. I made sure we didn't drink anything since I wasn't going to give her a reason to be kind to me or say she wasn't so inebriated that she couldn't drive back. In fact, we had a good conversation. I then escorted her to her vehicle. She insisted that she hadn't dated anyone else since I left and vowed fervently that I was the only person she wanted, so she pushed me hard to stay longer. "No, it's still way too early for me to go down that road," I informed her. She pleaded with me to come back, but I didn't say yes. After giving her my new email address, I didn't say anything more. My response to her request for my phone number was, "You'll just blow it up with texts and calls." She wept over it, but in the end, she agreed with my choice. She promised to send me an email with information on returning to town the following weekend before she left. I asked her directly, "Would you have forgiven me if I had been the one cheating?" before she got into her car. "Yes, in time, but only if we saw a marriage counselor and worked through the healing process with lots of talking, maybe even a binding agreement," she responded after pausing to reflect. "All right, maybe I could do that. In 5 or 10 years, I answered. "I would wait if that's what it would take," she replied. She then took both of my hands in hers, looked me in the eye and said, "God damn it, Paul, I will always love you and will do anything to prove it." This statement truly caught me off guard. Her remarks continued to upset me even after she left. She had spoken those words so firmly. However, I was still unable to envision us reuniting. Even though I felt better about the incident, I was unable to perceive her as a friend at this time. Perhaps a friend, but even that was a mystery. I returned home, enjoyed a long run, had some beer, and thought about how far I had come. Could someone please assure me that she wouldn't destroy the tranquility I had created for myself? I had no idea. I had the luxury of time to sort through it and get perspective, but it was all still too vivid in my mind. Last update. Most likely, this will be my final update. When I first uploaded my story to Reddit, the moderators kept taking it down. In summary, I ghosted my ex-wife for more than a year before she discovered me. She wanted to make amends and start over with us. You will be deeply disappointed if you thought I would be the typical beta blue pill fool and forgive her. She expressed her love and regret for the affair in a lengthy email she sent me last week. She offered to come out and stay with me for the weekend once more. My answer? I silenced her. I informed her that I had no plans to make amends with her. I'm totally happy living alone, taking advantage of my secluded position, and keeping things simple. At 32, I'm not in a rush to make changes. I have my own self-determination plan and have enjoyed the company of a few women and friends. I made it clear in my email response that I had no intention of reconciling and declined to provide her with my phone number. I no longer know or trust you because you made your bed. I hope the best for you, and perhaps we might become friends in the future, but not right now. She was annoyed by my evasiveness and responded in a telling way. She acknowledged that she had taken a job offer from a different state. Her true goal had been for me to accompany her, believing that my remote work would make the move simple. She wished we could start over somewhere new. She wanted to visit me in person to attempt to persuade me because she was running out of time before moving. Luckily for me, her time was up because I had a week of business travel scheduled. I'm grateful. I will no longer have her in my life. She will soon recognize that her time with me is over, but I anticipate receiving a few more emails. She'll need to find someone else, and she might even cheat on them. To anyone reading this, make the most of your life. Let go of the past and give yourself the strength to go on. To all of you, good luck. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.